today I'm going to be doing a video all about my favourite podcasts that I've been listening to over the past couple of weeks. I've recently started to get back into podcasts. I mainly listen to them when I'm on a walk with Baloo. It just helps the time go quicker. It makes me more motivated to get out and do longer walks with him, and you know, it helps me to do longer walks. And seeing as I'm on sort of a healthy kick at the moment, trying to do more exercise and eating better, this has really helped with that. So the first one I'm going to start off with is the most magical podcast on earth, and I recently found this through Gary C. He and Adam Hatton do Disney vlogs, and he was recently a podcast guest on this show, so that's what made me find this podcast, this series. And it's basically each week they have a different guest on. It might not necessarily be someone, you know, in the YouTube famous world. It can be anyone, any guest at all. Anyone can ask to go on his podcast, and they talk about some of their favourite things at Disney. So Andy is the guy that runs the show. He, I believe, also does radio, so you might have heard him on the radio. But after listening to Gary's episode, I was like, hey, I want to be on that podcast. I love talking about Disney. This seems perfect. So I literally Facebook messaged them, and a week later I had a phone call with Andy, and we sat down and he asked me loads of questions about my experience with Disney World and Disney in general. And I am really excited to say that today, as you're watching this, the podcast comes out that I am a part of. So if I can, I will link it down below, but it's on like Spotify and where you find your podcast, the most magical podcast on earth. So I am going to be episode number 70 if you're watching this in the future, which is really exciting. We talk about the cruise that we went on last year, getting to go twice last year, a little bit about like my favourite attractions, favourite places to eat, where I want to stay. So if you like all things Disney, it's the podcast to listen to, and I definitely recommend you check out the episode that I was on. So yeah, I'd love to look for like a Universal equivalent of it, because I also love Universal Studios. I have a lot of like historical memories from that. Like, I probably have more memories as a child being in Universal than I do at Disney. I don't know why that is, but that seems to be the case. So if you know of like a really good Universal Studios podcast, possibly even one that I can ask to guest on, then that would be really cool. Leave a comment down below. So that is my first one. If you like Disney, that's the podcast to listen to. So the next podcast is Grounded with Louis Theroux. It's done by the BBC, but again, you can find it wherever you listen to your podcasts. And everyone knows Louis Theroux. I mean, he's infamous for his documentaries. I love watching them, and I've not listened to too many. I've only listened to 2 of his podcasts, purely just because of who he's had on. I've obviously selected the 2 that I'm most interested in. So the first one I listened to was the one with Rylan, who is it like more of a British entertainment personality, I guess. He was on Big Brother, he did X Factor, and now he's like a host. He did Gogglebox. He's just like an entertainment personality, and that was really interesting because they talked more about him as a person, the behind the scenes of like him going on X Factor and Big Brother, and how like he doesn't see his dad, and he has this whole side of a family that he's chosen not to be a part of, and how his mum singly raised him, and his relationship with his stepson. It was really interesting, this whole side of Rylan that you don't see, and you only see Rylan as a personality because that's not actually his real name. So I found that really interesting. And the other one I listened to was the one with Leah Remini. She is very infamous for being part of the Scientology program or religion, and infamously stepping out of that and talking very publicly about her views against it now. So again, that was really interesting. If you've seen Louis Theroux's documentary on Scientology, this is like hand in hand, will go with that really nicely. I remember her from having a little stint on Saved by the Bell. If you remember that, leave that as a comment down below, because I feel she doesn't get enough attention for that. But yeah, those were the two I've watched. If you like anything Louis Theroux, it's perfect to listen to. I just wish there were more people that I had a real interest in so I could listen to more of them. The next one is Online Offline. This is run by two ladies, Brogan and, what's the other girl's name? Bianca. If I knew Brogan first, she's Brogan Tate here on YouTube. I feel like we're very similar people, like we don't live terribly far away. We're Disney mad and that sort of thing. I don't really know Brogan, but I've followed her journey for a very long time and have interacted with her a little bit on like Instagram. But when they were bringing out a podcast, this was sort of what got me back into podcasts actually, was their one. I thought I'd give it a listen. I'd not known about Bianca before, and I did really enjoy the first couple of episodes. The first couple were sort of all about like self-care, being an online personality, and stepping aside from that, and you know, the different, having your offline personality as well. So I could relate to quite a few bits out of each episode, like some of the things in the friendships, and you know, being sort of an online personality, and how to differentiate that from, you know, your personal life. So I could relate to that. I have seen some of the reviews and they're not all glowing 5 stars. I think if you're coming at it from just stumbling across them, you don't usually watch these type of people on YouTube, you're probably not gonna warm to them as much from what I've gathered through the ratings. If you do already watch them, you like the YouTube lifestyle, like daily vlogs and all that sort of thing, it's definitely one to listen to. I could relate to a lot of things that they said. Bianca again can come off a little bit harsh, I will say, but that is just her nature. She's very much every woman for herself and doesn't give two shits. But yeah, I have enjoyed listening to their podcasts, but it's not had all 5-star reviews is what I'll say. And like books and YouTube videos you watch and TV shows, everything is individual to the person, whether you're going to like it or not. So these are just, you know, my recommendations. Hopefully you can find at least one podcast show that you like out of this. So the next one is Open Mind by Frankie Bridge. You may know Frankie Bridge from being in S Club Juniors or The Saturdays, but over the past couple of years she's come out more as being an advocate for mental health. She's a Mind ambassador, and I have just, you know, I've formed a woman crush on her really, because our journeys are very similar. I did do a book review of her book, which I don't have turned. Well, actually it's here, called Open. So if you've read the book, then you'll probably like the podcast and vice versa. She has guests on every week to talk about different things in mental health. So she one week had Molly from the Saturdays, and they talk about, you know, their time during the Saturdays, and a little bit about Molly's own struggles, but mainly about how her relationship grew with Frankie, and how from an outsider's point of view saw Frankie struggle at the time. I also listened to the one with Zoella, which I think was really interesting, because she sort of was catapulted into this YouTube fame, and she again has also been very public about panic attacks and things like that. So I could again relate to Zoe on that side of things. And she has spoken to Giovanna Fletcher, which I like G's podcast as well, so I'll talk about that in a minute, and about being mothers and, you know, things that come with that, and to do with your mental health through pregnancy. And I also listened to the one with her sister, Tor, and they talk quite a bit about how Tor went through miscarriage and again pregnancies, struggling for babies. I think at the time that they recorded that, I don't think Tor had actually had her twins, so it was really interesting to listen to that and know in the back of your mind that her story goes on to be successful and she has 2 healthy little twin boys. So that was really nice to listen to. So if you're looking for something more mental health focused, that is the one to go for. So finally, I've been listening to a lot of Giovanna Fletcher's podcast. She has a wide range of people on there, from, you know, everyone from her husband to other people in the public eye. She had Jo Malone on, which I listened to. That was a good one to know a bit more about Jo and how she progressed with motherhood through, you know, building the Jo Malone brand, and how she dealt with her cancer and things like that. She has also had the Duchess of Cambridge on, which I thought was really amazing. The Duchess has never done anything like that before, so that was really groundbreaking in the world of podcasts, and just shows, you know, what sort of down-to-earth people they can be. So yes, I really enjoyed listening to G's podcast, and I listened to the one on hers that she did with Frankie. And even though I'm not a mother myself at the moment, I could really take a lot from them, listening to stories about motherhood, things that often don't get talked about that much during and after pregnancy. I think it's really eye-opening and very inspiring just to hear all these women's stories. Like, I think anyone can listen to it, but especially if you're thinking of becoming a mum, or you're a first-time mum, or anywhere in motherhood, whether it be from struggling with miscarriages up until, you know, maybe you've got 3 or 4 kids. I think you can find an episode anywhere in this podcast series that you would enjoy. So those are my podcast recommendations, just a little chunk of what I've been listening to. So if you have any recommendations, make sure you leave them down below, because I'd love to find some new ones. I mainly, as you can tell, strive for like the people, stories and experiences, just daily chit chat, as opposed to audiobooks. And I know there's like a whole thing of like murder mystery type ones, which I may delve into at some point, and like there's all these like forensic podcasts that you can listen to and things like that. But yeah, leave me your recommendations down below. Make sure you go and check out my episode with Andy on the most magical podcast on earth, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.